Hello and welcome to your July 14th daily briefing. Today we have some updates with the next stimulus check and the next stimulus package. And later on in this video, I'm going to talk about rent moratoriums and the potential upcoming wave of evictions. I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but we have some updates there and I found it really interesting. And before I get into this video, please consider hitting that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It's free, it helps out this channel, I would appreciate it. And check out the link in my description to get 2 completely free stocks valued between $12 up to $1,400 with Webull once you deposit $100 into your account. It's a pretty darn good deal. All right, let's start off with some second stimulus check news and stimulus package news. Nancy Pelosi said today that she will delay the House's August recess if it means getting a stimulus bill passed sooner rather than later. How the House schedule works is they are currently scheduled to be in session for the last 2 weeks of July before leaving for recess for the entire month of August. That sounds pretty pleasant. You know, maybe I ought to put my bid in for representative after all. My birthday is in August, so taking the whole month off, that's a plan I could get behind. Anyways, the Senate is scheduled to be in session through the first week of August. So there's some disparity there. Basically, what Pelosi is saying is she's willing to forego a week of the House's vacation in order to get a bill passed as soon as possible. So that way it doesn't mean that they have to wait until after their August recess to get something passed. I have to commend her for that. The goal of the bill is to be as bipartisan as possible. However, the biggest piece of debate seems to be over the continuation of enhanced unemployment benefits, the PUA $600 per week unemployment. And this is what may take more time. It seems like most of the other issues are largely bipartisan and aren't really going to be debated on. A lot of the debate seems to be how exactly increased liability protection is going to work for schools and businesses, and what is going to happen with PUA. Are they going to extend it at the same dollar amount? Is it going to be extended but at a lower dollar amount? Is it going to be based off of unemployment? There's a whole lot of factors, and then how is the stimulus check going to fit in with that? Because I think the stimulus check and PUA are going to kind of be used as negotiation pieces against each other. But other than those things, most aspects seem to be pretty agreed upon on both sides. However, I don't see the debates over PUA extending through August. That's because PUA expires July 31st. I personally believe that there's going to be a push on both sides to figure out a resolution before that July 31st deadline, so there's no lapse in how PUA works. And in that way, they can still keep their nice entire month of August vacation as well. Moving on, we also have some updates regarding Mitch McConnell and the next stimulus package. He said yesterday that he is and has been in discussions with the Treasury about how the next round of relief is going to be completed. McConnell confirmed again that he believes there will be another rescue package with debates and discussions starting next week, the week of the 20th of July. You know, reading that, it's kind of funny hearing him say that he thinks there's going to be another package, because at this point, everyone just kind of assumes there will definitely be another rescue package. So that was kind of like, that kind of grounded me a little bit in reality, because in reality, there is no 100% guarantee. 95% chance that we see another stimulus bill? Yeah, probably, but that's not 100%. It's important to know that this hasn't been signed into law yet. McConnell goes on to say, I think you could anticipate this coming to a head sometime within the next 3 weeks, beginning next week. Again, that's the week of the 20th. And again, that really gives no information we don't already have. This is because if you think about it, the Senate is in session for only 3 weeks after the 20th, before their next recess. However, it's still nice to hear confirmation. With how much changes on a daily basis with these programs, I'd be totally fine if every day McConnell posted a video of him saying, we'll get this bill passed before our next recess. That'd make me totally happy. So if he repeats himself and it's a little bit redundant sometimes, I'm actually okay with that. Same with Trump saying that he's all for more stimulus checks. If he wants to go ahead and say that every day, I'm a happy camper. All right, moving on. Here's a topic that I haven't talked about in a while, probably because it's about as fun to talk about as funerals are, but that topic is rent moratorium and the potential wave of upcoming evictions, millions of evictions. For those who aren't aware, there's a rent moratorium in effect on federally backed mortgages until July 25th. What this means is renters who rent a home that has a federally backed mortgage cannot be evicted for non-payment until July 25th. I can't believe it's already mid-July. However, at the same time, 2020 has felt like 2 years long already, and we're just over halfway through. Anyways, this federal rent moratorium covers about 1/5 or 20% of all renters in the US. And then on top of the federal moratorium, there are many city and state moratoriums that cover even more renters. So take a look at your local municipalities to see how exactly moratoriums are in effect for your area. But a lot of areas are covered with some kind of moratorium. And as a side note, in most cases, the moratorium doesn't mean that tenants aren't obligated to pay whatsoever. It just means that if they don't pay during that specified period, they're not at risk of eviction during that period, but they will still need to pay back rents at a later date. And here's the problem. There are no solutions to this yet, and in May, 20% of renters, or about 13 million people, missed their rent payment. This is not good. The pauses on evictions are all temporary with set end dates. However, the pause on rents is not a pause on eviction proceedings. States are finding that landlords are preemptively filing eviction procedures for non-paying tenants so that the paperwork will go through on the day rent moratorium ends. I mean, you can't really blame them. If they're not making any money, they're going to want to try to get someone in there that's paying them as soon as possible. But these filings are piling up to just be in effect the day that the moratorium expires. The unfortunate part is this may cause mass evictions for those who have no source of income right now, leaving families with nowhere to go. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, this is just a really bad situation. This means more struggling and less people purchasing things, which means less money to businesses, which leads to more people laid off and even more evictions. The cycle continues in this scary rinse, wash, repeat scenario that we really just don't want to see. On the other side of the coin, I want to point out how poorly thought out that these rent moratoriums are for landlords. I think it's great to help people and have programs in place when bad things happen, but there just needs to be a look at the bigger picture. There's other people being affected here as well. Most landlords aren't these ultra rich people who can afford no rents for 5 months or whatever. They're not huge corporations. Most landlords are middle class people who just have, one or a couple tenants as a supplement to their income. These are people who saved up over years and bought a second house to rent out, or they had a house and then they bought a new one, rent out their old house. These are people just as at risk as tenants are in a lot of cases. Many work full time, or this is their retirement to have a house that they rent out. They just can't afford to receive no rent payments for months on end. And then maybe they lost their jobs too. There's just most of these people aren't ultra rich. At least the moratorium extends to landlords' mortgages as well. So if a tenant isn't paying rent, a landlord can opt for a form of forbearance, which, don't get me wrong, comes with a whole host of additional issues, but the landlord is still eventually obligated to pay for those mortgage payments. And here's where the big issue arises. Both the landlord and tenant have to eventually pay. If a landlord opts to use forbearance, he or she will need to eventually pay, otherwise the home's going to be foreclosed on. The renter needs to pay, otherwise they're going to be evicted. The issue is that if a renter can't afford 1 month of payments, how will they ever be able to pay back like 5 or 6 or maybe even more months of rent that are past due? Yes, a landlord can take them to court and they'll win if they're past due, but very few will actually see that money because those people simply aren't going to have that money, especially right now when so many people are out of work. To sum this up, I found a quote from the California Apartment Association in reference to their state's pause on rent. They said the move is unnecessary, overly broad, and invites tenants who have the financial wherewithal to pay their rent to withhold it, leaving landlords struggling to cover their own bills and to keep employees on their payroll. And again, I'm not complaining that the rich landlords need more help. Most aren't rich. And by the way, I have no rental homes and I don't rent, so I don't have a dog in this fight. I just see a glaring issue. I just feel if there's going to be government intervention, there needs to be a well thought out solution for both sides of those who are being affected. So what is the solution? There was a stimulus proposal a while back to cancel rent and mortgage payments. However, after reading that through, I think the proposal was overcomplicated. So here's my idea. It's probably not perfect, but I don't know. I sat and thought about it for a little while. So step one, pause rents for those who can certify they can't afford it because of the current circumstances. The word certify is important because we want as few people abusing the system as possible. Yet it's very important to get the people who are actually in need assistance. I think that's really important. Step two, create a fund for landlords to draw from if their renters can't pay. Again, the landlords must also certify that renters didn't pay and aren't going to or aren't able to. We don't want landlords double dipping either. We don't want abuse on the other side of the system either. Then step three, or maybe this is just a side note, if your state can't afford to fund this fund for landlords, you should find a different solution to evictions, like federal funding or some other solution. You can't just help out one side. Anyways, that's all for today. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.